What is up, listeners? Welcome back to Predator vs. Movies. I'm Alex.
I'm Peter.
I'm Aiden. I'm not singing.
And this is a podcast where we discuss and review the latest movie releases. We're going to start off with a non-spoiler review before diving into a deep discussion of the film, and then we are going to ask the most important question: would this movie be better if the alien from Predator was in it? Before we do that, though, we have some trailers to discuss.
Into the trailer park, my brothers.
Yes,
off we go.
That is where we look at the trailers, in the trailer park, because that's where trailers are. First up, we have a little trailer for a movie called All of Us Strangers. It's an Andrew... I said I was going to look this up. Andrew Haig film. He is a British filmmaker who did movies. He did Lean on Pete.
Okay.
I've heard of that one.
Lean on Pete.
That was actually his last film, his most recent film. He did a movie called 45 Years and a movie called Weekend. Oh, I've heard of Weekend. Anyways, it stars, I also don't know the other guy's name. Is it something Scott? Look at me. So prepared.
Oh, Andrew Scott, right?
Andrew Scott,
Like,
yeah.
He's the priest guy from the Flea show.
Yeah, okay, I thought it was Andrew Scott, but I second-guessed myself because they're both Andrews. So it's Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal, and it looks very similar to After Sun, but I say that in a positive way.
Right.
It looks like we're going to like some family, like nostalgia, memory sort of stuff, and Andrew Scott, hot priest, and Paul Mescal, hot dad in After Sun, are romancing it up, and it. I don't know. I'm quite interested in this. I think it looks good.
Peter?
To be honest, even though I sent you guys the trailer, I didn't watch the trailer
I
myself.
didn't watch it either.
Come on, man.
I was just like, oh, it's Paul Mescal. And I was like, hey, I'll send this to you guys.
I saw tweets about it though. I think this movie. I think I've seen people talking about this movie for a little while now. No.
It's yes. People were quite excited when they heard Paul Mescal and Andrew Scott were going to be doing a movie where they were lovers. So I mean, yeah, I get it. And then more recently, after the film has been like doing its festival tour, it's got some pretty good reviews. Like I think quite good. So I think that's why you've been hearing about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've heard it's quite good, and I believe it. I think it looks quite good to me as well. Good. There was another trailer.
This one I did watch.
For a little movie called Dream Scenario. Did neither of you watch it?
No, I did.
Dream Scenario, I did. Yeah.
This
Dream
one I
Scenario,
did watch. Yeah.
No one watched All of Us Strangers.
I did not watch All of Us Strangers.
I heard Peter didn't hear. Okay. Dream Scenario is a movie produced by Ari Aster, which explains a lot. I noticed that this time.
It does.
Like, oh.
It does. It has that sheen for sure.
Right?
Though I think this looks very interesting. I think this is something that this is in my realm of things. This is something that I would write from the looks of it, and I am excited for this one. Though considering let's just say I hope that the Aster-esque features are to a minimum. I'll say that as not the largest fan.
Well, I mean, it's already quite pronounced. Like, if you compare lots.
Well, I don't mind the visual style, but I just
Yeah.
hope like the story isn't like the same. I hope it avoids the
yeah.
pitfalls that I don't like in Ari Aster movies.
I see.
Yeah.
I can see that.
So
I just
If people are listening for the first time, this is a podcast that is lukewarm at best on Ari Aster.
Yeah.
I just thought, like, when I was watching, I was like, oh my god, the main guy looks so familiar. Who is that? and then they said it's Nicolas Cage. I was like, oh my god, that is actually him. But
You didn't recognize him? That's great.
no, I did not recognize him.
Beard.
But it
Beard
looks
and
very fun.
bald.
It looks very fun. Yeah.
So I'll describe it because I haven't really had an opportunity to do so. It's actually directed by Christopher Borgli. He did a movie last year that I've heard of, but I have yet to see, called Sick of Myself.
Okay.
he's Norwegian. Anyways, yes, it stars Nicolas Cage, and he's a guy who starts appearing in everybody's dreams. And yeah, it's a surrealist comedy film, so it's supposed to be funny. All the reviews in the trailer say that Nicolas Cage is quite funny in it. I'm definitely a little skeptical. Just I don't know what it was. Like I couldn't clue into it on the first watch, and then I saw the Ari Aster thing. I was like, oh, that's why. like it kind of. I'm a little bit like. I'm dubious, like just like what they're gonna do with the concept of it. It's a very high concept, and I'm wondering, okay, but what next? You know, so.
How's that
but
straight?
I mean,
I feel like there are a
the
number of
point
ways you
trailer,
can
I
go.
suppose. Well, yes, no, I'm just curious as to what that will be. So, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But we don't have to wait and see for a movie that we did. Wait and we saw.
We sat and watched.
Yes.
Yes.
And you want to tell us about said movie?
So we watched a little movie called Theater Camp. It was directed by Molly Gordon and Nick Lieberman. It was written by Noah Galvin, Molly Gordon, Nick Lieberman, and Ben Platt. Some might recognize that name as the high school guy who was
Evan
scary
Hansen.
in that movie, Evan Hansen. It was based on a short film by the same name, by the same people. It's starring Noah Galvin, Molly Gordon, Ben Platt, Jimmy Tatro, Patty Harrison, Nathan Lee Graham, Ayo Edebiri, and a few amongst other people. Cinematography was by Nate Hertzellers. It was released initially January 21st, 2023. That was at Sundance. Got a wide release on July 14th of this year. Runtime 93 minutes. Box office is $4.5 million, but I do not have a budget here.
Very cool. Something I found out in my research, Ben Platt, who we all know, Noah Galvin in the list is Glenn.
Oh,
He's
okay.
the tech guy. And Molly Gordon is the music person, Rebecca Diane.
I figured.
So three out of 4 writers and producers are also in the movie, and then Molly Gordon also directs in addition. So she's like doing everything. It's crazy.
It's going crazy.
And the other thing is, that I learned that Noah Galvin and Ben Platt are engaged. I had no idea.
Ah.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I've seen them around. I recognize Noah Galvin from things, but I had no idea, so that's cool.
She's in The Good Doctor.
That show, no.
You watched that?
No, I just saw it on Wikipedia. He is not the Good Doctor himself, but
no,
he's in that
thank
show.
you.
Okay.
Anyways.
Wait, is
big
that show
issue-
supposed to be good or bad? Because like I was watching it, I was looking at the reviews, and the reviews are actually quite good.
Yeah, but cable
like-
shows sometimes just get like a certain
Good review?
demographic of
I
people
see.
that watch it that just eat that shit up, and that
I
doesn't
see,
make
I
them
see.
good.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's cable, so.
Yeah.
But now that we've discussed the movie and The Good Doctor, we do our classic saving. Predator critic. Predacritic.
Predator critic.
Great start,
This
great start.
is a thing where there's a website called Metacritic, and we are going to guess where Theater Camp lands in the metric of Metacritic. I'm spinning a wheel to determine who shall go first among
Shall
us.
go
It will be,
first.
it will
and
be
it's-
Aiden.
For fuck's sake, it's
I
me.
hope not.
I am going first. Okay.
Dude, this is like your 3rd time going first.
I know,
I
you're
keep
always
going first, and it keep
Yeah.
losing because of it. So I have a feeling that I'm feeling 70s.
Okay.
Feeling 70s. I'm gonna do a seance. So feeling 70s. Speak to me, Theater Camp. I'm feeling 76. Next up is Aiden.
Next up is
Ooh.
Aiden. I don't know if I'm tapped in with the critics on this one, to be honest. I can tell you how I feel about this movie. I think that you're probably right around the money there, Alex. I think that this might be slightly higher, though. And so, therefore, I will go 77.
Very interesting. And that, of course, leaves Peter.
Okay, I mean, I can play the game. Boring, but I can play the game. But I would not play the game. I'm gonna guess 78.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I will let you play the
saved
game,
me.
but I think it's slightly higher than 77.
Okay.
So to recap, 76 on my part, 77 Aiden, 78 Peter.
I'm
right?
safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I asked for.
Well, guess
And it's
what?
lower. Huh?
Well, guess what, mother effers?
Oh my
Is
god.
it 70? Is it 76?
Are you right on the
My
money?
luck's turning around. It's actually lower than any of us could have guessed. It's 70, which is
okay.
disappointing for the film, but very good for me because this
That is
means
good for
I
you.
win for once.
You do win. And
I was
I'm
on a
safe.
losing streak. So yeah, it's got
Bro,
a
this
70.
is what I
think
get
that's,
for being fun, bro. Come on.
So this means, of course, that I get to do my spiel, my non-spoiler review.
You're Spielberg.
I love this movie. This is the second time I've seen this movie. I saw it in theaters a month ago, and I watched it again today on Disney+. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. I might give it 5 stars this time.
No way.
Like, that's what I'm
That's
saying,
too
like-
high.
Like, if we're talking about Aiden's way of ranking movies, which is how, like,
Did you have a good
is
time?
it achieving what it set out to be? Is it the best
Oh,
version
okay,
of
I see, I
itself?
see.
Yeah.
I feel like theater camp is. I don't have like I thought I had a flaw the first time, but I kind of like just didn't this time. I fully enjoyed myself. I'll talk more about the actual movie. It's incredibly funny. Also, like very heartfelt and emotional. I found myself on more than one account, like tearing up, which is rare. It doesn't always happen, and so I was quite surprised by that. And on a second viewing, sometimes that helps actually. I think the first time, one of the flaws I found was that it's quite chaotic and there's a lot going on, and I felt like not enough things were getting fully fleshed out. But I didn't feel that at all this time. I kind of like thought that it worked for the story. It was like the stories that it's really trying to tell are there and strong. And while some of the side things don't get their full time in the
Closure.
spotlight, I guess, like it's not important. Like it wasn't about them. They were kind of like a gag. It's a silly comedy movie. It's a fun 90-minute movie. Like not really a concern of mine. The main story is fleshed out. The main two stories, I'd say. Yeah, I think the cast is phenomenal. I think the characters are phenomenal. The singing, oh my god, the children in this movie like blow the actual star cast out of the water sometimes. They're so funny. And just so talented as well. I think it perfectly captures what like the musical theater experience is, and I think the filming is also like really, really strong. It's doing this mockumentary style, and I think it does it quite well, and it looks gorgeous. So definitely one of my favorite movies of this year. Maybe 5 stars, and absolutely would recommend this to a friend. So I think that means Aiden is next. What did you think about this movie?
I liked this movie a lot too. I think this movie was very, very funny. I think it had a lot of heart. I think it was very sincere. I did have some minor flaws, though, kind of like you said, none of them bogged me down, and none of them subtracted necessarily from my experience too hard, though I did have some. I had a similar note about the chaos, and I think I can be more specific in that. I think there are certain characters that are maybe mishandled a bit. Like, if their role is to just be a silly side character, then there are things that don't make sense to me within that, and we can get into that a little bit more. But that's honestly somewhat nitpicky. I think that it's really nice that they have this nostalgic film style for, like, essentially, like, the theater camp is this home away from home, and I think to a certain extent people who went to theater camps and who have these memories are meant to be like transported back and feel at home again once they're in this theater camp. And I think that this nostalgic kind of like this film with like a lot of like halation and light bleeding, like it presents that very well. I think that the cast is very funny, and yeah, I like Jimmy Tatro. I like seeing him and stuff. Even though he is kind of the same guy every time, I think he does it very well. And then I have some minor critiques here and there, but this is a 4-star movie for me. Definitely enjoyed it. I think it's quite well written, and I think it was a good time.
Yeah, Jimmy Tatro was the guy. I remember when we first saw the trailer and talked about it here, you were excited that he was in it. So I'm
Yeah.
curious. I'm looking up like just on Letterboxd what he's been in, and he's been in a lot.
He's
but
been
I
an
still-
American Vandal, which I cannot
Yeah.
recommend
Right, that's what it
enough
is.
to everyone. That is one of the best Netflix original shows that has ever been made. It is like shockingly good, and especially the first season is like very poignant in the end, and you would not expect it to be, but it's like that's a good show. Everyone should watch that show.
Interesting. He is also the creator and star of the YouTube channel Life According to Jimmy. Which
Yeah,
is
he's a
more than
YouTuber.
3.4 million subscribers. Video sketches. Interesting. And then he was also in 22 Jump Street.
Oh,
Cool.
yeah.
Oh, that sounds like his movie, actually.
He's in so many
22
movies,
Jump
though.
Street is exactly his type of movie.
Yeah, he's in King of Staten Island, Grown Ups 2, Bad Education, Wolf of Snow Hollow, Strays, Stuber. Isn't Stuber? Peter, what did you think about this movie?
Okay, so I was very excited about this movie, not gonna lie. When I watched the trailer, I was like, okay, this is just like a goofy, wholesome, very like, has a lot of heart type movie, you know? And not gonna lie, when I was watching it, I was a little scared because I was like, okay, when is this movie gonna start to get good? Because, like, especially in the first half, it was quite chaotic. There were a lot of things going on all at once. And I wasn't sure that, you know, everything will be wrapped up in a good manner. But, like, the third act absolutely slapped. So the third act was so good. I did tear up as well towards the end of the third act. I think a lot of characters got, like, just so many warm and just wholesome conclusions at the very end. And then the kids are so talented. And then, like, even though this is a movie about a theater camp, like, all the music pieces and all the choreography they've done are absolutely stellar. Like, especially the end. The tap sequence and the singing sequences are fantastic, and just like a very, very good time. It's almost like a Wes Anderson movie. Like, it makes you feel very warm when you're watching it. Like, it's very lighthearted, funny, and also wholesome at the same time. I gave it a 4 out of 5. 1 star off because the beginning I was just not vibing with it, but the end was so good, so it absolutely deserves 4 out of 5.
Interesting.
And I recommend everyone to watch this. This is a very good movie.
Cool. So pretty much all in the positives, with a range of a slight variation of how positive. But Peter, my boy, unfortunately,
It's
you have to give a synopsis for once.
Okay.
That's the
Yes.
spoiler alarm.
Yeah, I don't know if you
if
guys
you
read
haven't
that,
seen the
that
movie,
is a
get the
fact.
fuck out.
Yeah. Not a movie that you could like totally spoil, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
That is true. That is true.
you could know the ending, but I
Yeah.
don't think
Yeah.
you couldn't
Dude,
see anything.
The
from,
end
like,
was
having
crazy.
one
Yeah.
bro.
Christopher Nolan showed up and was like, yo, I'm about to direct the next musical for the camp. Like, Christopher
Yeah.
Nolan from, like, you know, our
From the real
showed
world.
up.
No, it's a good
Yeah.
thing that we put the spoiler warning on, because I mean, people would have been
Because
pissed.
people would be fucked off.
People would be
Yeah.
pissed.
Dude, it was very
Oh,
unexpected. It was very unexpected. I gotta
Okay,
say.
well, I'm gonna keep us on track here. Peter, you have 2 minutes. Are you ready?
2 minutes, let's go.
Okay, and 3, 2, 1. You may commence.
Okay, so at the start of the movie, Joanne, who's the founder and organizer of theater camp.
Joan. It's Joan.
Sorry?
It is
Joan.
Joan, sorry. Joan, the founder and
say it
organizer
so
of theater
much.
camp, basically, like, is in a coma. And now her son must take over and organize the theater camp. Now, theater camp is in sort of a financial situation. You know, the rich camp next door wants to buy it out, and then the son mistakenly signed, like, a contract. So now they sort of need to save the camp in one way or another. And during the camp, there were, like, a lot of auditions and people being cast into place, and the biggest one is Still Joan, which is like a tribute to Joan, who's, you know, currently in a coma. And then during the production, one of the 2 main teachers that we're following, they're sort of in a very strange platonic relationship. The lady got a job on a cruise ship, so she started like leaning towards that instead of devoting herself to the camp. So they sort of have a fallout between the guy teacher and the lady teacher. And what else happened? And they were sort of running into like a casting problem as well, because one of the leads got offered a role as a pregnant gymnast on a set somewhere. So the tech guy, Glenn, has to step in and fill the shoes. And basically at the very end, the son of Joan, Troy, invited all his TikTok influencer friends, potential investors as he called them, to watch the play, and the play unfolded flawlessly. The lady teacher and the guy teacher made up, and it ended with the Airbnb guy that Troy is hosting donating a huge sum of money to save the theater camp.
Yeah, good old.
It's a hard movie to like summarize. I feel like
they do put a lot of stuff goes on.
There's like a lot of random little things here and there.
Yeah.
Like for example, there's like a little party they threw where the rich camp kids get invited, right? Like there were like a lot of small sequences that did not advance the plot per se, but are like really great character building. And like I guess theater camp, like if you think about the camp as a character, like we get to know more about what this camp is about and the type of people in the camp. So yeah.
I was gonna say I agree with you that the camp itself is kind of a character and it's interesting. I don't necessarily agree that those sequences don't advance the plot. I think that like especially the like relationships like kind of are the plot, like the relationships and how they're tied together like so it is important. Like for example, like it's actually a really important beat that Ben Platt's character is like getting like increasingly upset at this party, and he talks to the kids and he's like, cherish those memories, cherish them. Like that is actually an important plot beat as well. Then also we also have the
relationship won't last, by the way. There's two people, a couple dancing. It was so funny.
We also have the development of the Jimmy Tatro Patty Harrison thing, which is also important in that scene. And so I agree that like I don't think there's actually that much that is superfluous in that. I don't think there are that many scenes that like, oh, there's no reason for that to happen. I don't think that happens much. My problem is more, well, I'll get into it. I don't want to start with problems, but Alex, what are you going to say?
Yeah, I'll just say like that's coming at a movie with the plot cell mindset of like, okay, but like what's like you're thinking like these characters need to go from A to B, and it's like, how are we going to save the camp? But like movies can be vibes too, you know? And like I think like there's scenes where I guess you have to ask the question, what is this movie trying to do? Like what's its goal? What's it about? And I would say this movie is about, and its goal is to be like what is theater camp actually like? Like this is like I hate to say it, but like this is like a love letter to theater, right? And the camp experience. And so if you're making a movie about the theater camp experience, you're gonna have to have the theater camp experience in the movie. That's kind of like a really important part. And I think it's quite deft how they do that, and yet also make those scenes like actually propelling the narrative without being so, I wouldn't say it's not like plotty, but it also is, because like Aiden said, it's advancing those relationships, which that is the story. It's not, this isn't a movie where we're trying to like do a heist or something. Like this is a movie where you have characters who feel like they don't belong and characters in conflict. And so that, for example, this scene where the lakeside people come over, it's about how those characters are reacting to the events they're participating in. I think also some things that happen in that sequence that Aiden didn't mention are like Troy is starting to like connect with the children. He starts doing like a DJ thing with the Broadway music, so he's trying to find a way for his style to mesh with the kids. I'm trying to think what else is in this. There's like some smaller beats, but yeah, it's kind of like the thread of like I don't know. Maybe it's like maybe the point of that scene is like the juxtaposition of the two camps, right? You've got them in this space together. They're always like classified as the other Lakeside, and we don't get to see them. This is the first and only time we get to see Lakeside, so it's kind of important to be like, what are those kids actually like? And it shows you how kind of while the theater kids are very weird and eccentric, they're also like having so much fun where the other kids aren't in a lot of the time we see them at the party. I will stop talking. Aiden has
No, that's
stuff
fair.
to say.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that if you bring up Lakeside and if this is a thing, then you have to bring them up. One critique I would level is that, like, I think that the difference between the kids should maybe like factor in a little bit more, like, or if there isn't a difference and if that's the point, then that should be like kind of the revelation of the scene, and then we can move on. But like, I like, for example, like I like that the one boy is like playing football with them. Like I think that's like a funny moment, and I think that shows, like, it's nice that like these kids don't really have like beef with each other. Like I think it's kind of an interesting thing. But I would say, like, my problem is just that I think that there are some things where I'm like, in this movie where I'm like, why did this happen? Like, and also, if we want to start with, we're already on this topic, so might as well. So it's like, so my thing is like with Ayo Edebiri's character.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind there being a character that just is like kind of silly and is kind of outside the plot. I think that's totally fine. I think the cutaway scenes are quite funny. Like when they're doing the mask tableau thing, and she's like,
God.
"Wow, that's good." That's a very funny scene. I didn't have a big problem with it until the end when it's the agent thing happening. And it's also like, why is there an agent kid? Like, I just don't, and I'm saying agent. And I don't think, like, I don't really understand why either, like, on a plot level, neither of those characters need to be there, except I would say it's good to have an outsider character who's, like, kind of normal, and that's what Ayo Edebiri is. And I think that, like, that's important, but I think you can do that, and like why give the detail that like, oh, she lied about everything, because you've set yourself up that you have to pay that off, because that's too specific and that's too much of a starting point for a character. And so they try to pay it off by being like, well, you're good at lying, so you can be an agent, and like that's the that's the end of it. And it's like, that's, I think, just take that out and just have her be like a side character who's just reacting to what's happening. And there's a little bit of that. But I don't think her function in the story is completely fleshed out. And I know I am a plot cell, but I would also argue that everyone really is. It's just that, like, some people don't think of the right thing when they think of plot. Sometimes I think people think, like, that means this person has to shoot the other one in the face, and then we have to, like, big things have to happen, and that's not what a plot is. Like, whatever, though. I digress.
Yeah, I will say that even like still on the rewatch, Alan, I'm trying to remember what's the name of the kid versus the character versus the actor, because I think they're both Alan, like it's Alan either way. Yeah, his name is Alan Kim. I'm pretty sure it's the Minari kid.
I think so. I think it is.
Oh, that's
He is,
cool.
yeah, he's the Minari kid, and both times I was like, man, this kid is really weird. Like, more so like just seemed like so weird that like I mean, all the kids are kind of like have their eccentricities, but like a kid who thinks he's an agent is like just a little bit maybe stretching the boundary of realism.
Sure.
Even then, like, I'm like, I buy that. Like, I buy there's a
Sure.
kid who like thinks he's like,
Yeah.
oh, business. But I do think I think that was the most superfluous the movie gets. I agree that Ayo Edebiri is just kind of like, what are you doing here? But I think if you look at her role, I will say I do agree on the her connecting with the agent just seems like unnecessary. I think that ending spot is just forced and random. I don't think the kid needed to be in this movie at all, but like the kid, he's cool, but for Ayo's role, I think just having a character who we just occasionally cut back to as like you said, she's like the true straight person of this movie. Sometimes I noticed that Troy and the theater people like take turns being the straight person and the comedic person in different contexts and different scenarios. So Ao is the person who is straight, like removed from both of those. She's not the really exaggerated influencer person, and she's not also part of the theater community. So I agree. I think her role is quite important, and I found like the her like trying to bullshit like mask exercises so funny when she's just funny. Like she's describing the Kardashians and she's making them be the Kardashians. She's like, okay, you're a family of influencers. You're the mom. Your names all start with the same letter. You're married to a basketball player who keeps cheating on you.
That's
and
crazy.
Just doesn't say the name Kardashians.
Oh,
but like,
there's such a hilarious.
It shows back.
There's such a hilarious little thing that one of the boys who's wearing a mask, when she says like, and the basketball player's always cheating, he goes like he puts his hand to his mouth and he just has the mask on. It's really funny. That's awesome. Yeah. But no, I agree with you. All I'm saying is that like the payoff doesn't work, but you have to pay it off because there's setup. If you just have her there and she's just one of the teachers and she's just been there, and it's not that Jimmy Tatro fired a bunch of other people and she's a replacement. It's just that she's one of the teachers there and she's not quite into it the same way they are. Then I think it works better because then she can just be like the runner. Like she can be like the D plot that's just kind of coming in and out. But because there's like a starting point, it feels like it has to change, if that makes sense. Mm. There's such a specific starting point, it feels like you have to pay it off. And I think that's unnecessary.
I wonder if like a better ending would have been like she becomes the new tech person, you know, like something like that.
Yeah, and then it's a joke, and it's just like, because she's like, they've successfully bought like her lie, like she's lied successfully, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, like if she just find like she's ingrained herself and she's like, oh, that went off without a hitch, or alternatively, someone's like, you completely lied on your, like she's found out. Like that's also just like a perfectly fine ending to this. Is like she's found out, and then how do they react to that? They're like, I don't know. Is it like you're fired or something funnier? Like you're cool. Like we'll keep you around. You're fine. I felt the business thing was unnecessary. Peter, earlier you had something to say. We didn't get to though. What's?
Yeah. So I would say that, like, I think it's both the strength and the weakness of this movie, where like a lot of storytelling or like character building is told through small bits, where it's like literally you cut to someone or a group of people, and then the whole scene lasts less than a minute. You know, it's just literally like a small joke or something that's totally out of the blue, and then that's been used to sort of tell the story of who these people are, what they're like, etc. But I think that's also sort of a weakness. Like I get like the Ayo Edinburgh's character is sort of there to, you know, be the straight person, and also I guess to just showcase how bad of a time the theater camp, how bad of a situation the theater camp is in currently, because they can't even hire real teachers. They have to hire someone with absolutely like a fake resume, you know, and then they just got her on the job because, you know, she said she can do everything. But then that's also like, I feel like you're layering too much off that, so it's sort of bloating the movie in a way, you know. I think like the business plot honestly is fine, because like there needs to be something to drive like the entire movie forward, and that does a pretty good job of that. But some of the small things I think they can cut here and there. But like most of the movie is also like made up by these small moments, so it's really like a balancing act, I think.
Yeah, I will say I think that it's one of the very good things this movie does is that its scenes are very short, and that makes it feel like a lot has happened. Like it gives you the sense that it's this fast. It gives you a sense that one, everything's moving quickly, and two, a lot is happening. And I think that's really good. I was thinking a lot about this, where I was thinking about J.K. Rowling sucks, but I'm gonna bring up the Harry Potter movies as an example, the early ones, where I was thinking about like why do those movies feel like, oh, this was a year, and I feel watching a movie, this was like a year of these kids' lives, and it's because like they don't have a bunch of scenes that drag. Like they just get every scene, if you rewatch those movies, just like gets to the point and then they're moving on. And so it feels like so much happened, it feels like so much time has passed, and that's really important when you're telling a story with like a bunch of characters and they're all supposed to come together and stuff. So I think this movie does that very well. I think that it actually I think it avoids underdeveloping any of the individual plot lines too much. I think that both the relationship between Ben Platt and Molly Gordon doesn't feel too particularly underdeveloped to me, and I also don't think the business, like the foreclosure, feels underdeveloped to me. I think that's good. The one thing I will say is that I think the pacing of the friend conflict is just slightly wonky to me, because I feel like it doesn't really exist until a certain point in the movie, and then suddenly like there's a lot of conflict between them, and I think you feel the potential for conflict early, but I think that maybe they're a little late to start planting the seeds for it.
Yeah, I would say that just to respond to that, I think they do plant the seeds somewhere within the first act. I'm not sure when, but when they're at the fireside with the confiscated liquor, then Ao Edebiri says, "You guys are totally codependent," and I think that's the seed where we've established it. We don't have to start they don't have to start being in conflict just yet. We can see the just little bits of strain. They're allowed to be friends for a little bit, because I agree that it doesn't show itself quite yet, but I like that. I like that while we have conflict already kind of steering us. We know that the camp has money problems, so that's kind of our main plot. That's our main conflict. And then at some point, we're chugging along with the first conflict, we had another conflict, and then it's the ever increasing amount of conflicts that kind of keep propelling the story and keep it interesting. So I'm glad that it's a relationship that evolves. So, and you kind of have to get a better sense of them as friends, I guess, as well. So you need to see, what does their friendship look like, and they're kind of they have to set up the friendship things that lead to the pitfalls later. So them coming up with the musical, and he's like, you've got the finale, right? You got the finale, and she's like, yeah, I have the finale. And actually, I'll use this as a jumping off point to talk about a specific scene. So there's a scene where it's the tear stick scene. So there's the two kids are doing a scene from Joan Still, the original musical, and the dad character is yelling at the Joan character because she's not doing his pierogies thing anymore. She's doing other stuff instead of his business. That's exactly the same conflict as Rebecca, Diane, and Amos, and it's I was really impressed by this because I didn't pick up on this the first time. The kids are wearing the same colors as Ben Platt and Rebecca, Diane. So Ben Platt is in red, the boy is in red, and the two girls are in blue. And so it's the controlling male figure saying, you're supposed to stay with me, and we're supposed to do this together. And the blue character is saying, no, I have to do my own thing. And I thought that was really interesting.
I had something else, but I don't need to retread the other thing that I was saying. I think to talk about this scene specifically, one thing I really, really like this scene, and I think one of the things I really like about it is that this scene kind of plays into the idea of sincerity and artifice that kind of is, I think it's not really commented upon too much in this movie, but I think it's really well done. I think particularly because theater in a sense is something that is fake. It's something that's constructed and put on, and it's meant to rouse you, but there's a lot of honesty within it. And so talking about what the lines are, what is a trick and what isn't a trick, the menthol eye rub, that is a trick, and that's I think just an interesting thing. On one level it's just interesting, it's good comedic fertilizer. I think they have a good comedic scene out of it. I think it's really great that Molly Gordon's character puts it on herself, and it's but it's that wavering of yes, she's kind of putting on a show, but she's also genuinely upset. And so it's it's this analysis of artifice within theater that doesn't subtract from the sincerity of it, but also focuses on how kind of done up and extravagant it is, but it's not critiquing that and it's not putting it down, and it's actually pointing out how that's very honest, because she is legitimately very upset. And what I like about that is you can't tell if she's actually crying. Like, Molly Gordon's character seems like she might actually be crying normally, but she also has the eye rub, and yeah.
There's like snot coming out of her mouth.
Yeah.
Like, there's a cut.
Yeah.
There's a great cut where she's crying and then cuts and then there's snot coming out of her mouth.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, damn, what was it? Artifice. Oh, we're theater people. We turn cardboard into gold. That's what they say.
That was a good one.
Yeah. No, I love that scene. I also like the bit where when they realize they're like, she's using, and she like storms the stage and does like a roll on the top to get up, and then after she's done it, the camera cuts back to Ben Platt. He stands up, walks, and does like a jump where his like legs are spread out. He does the splits to get on the stage. Just like great silly little moments. This movie's made up of them, and we were talking about this earlier. Like, the movie's constructed out of bits, and I can't believe we haven't brought this up, but like it's in the mockumentary style. Like, it's using the language of the mockumentary style. So like talking about it's making me think of like Spinal Tap, and how like movies like that, that is what the whole idea is. You're seeing bits, little scenes that kind of build out the world, and it's showing like a real documentary. It's like showing the passage of time and a story. And so in this case, the story is like the camp is having financial issues, but the scenes themselves can be like slices of life almost, where it's maybe not every single scene is driving the plot. You have scenes like the one where it's the seance, like past lives, the past lives scene where she's like, I have it written down because I found it so funny both times. She was like, you are a lesbian, you were a nurse in World War II. She's talking to a kid. Rebecca Diane is talking to a kid about their past lives. She's like, you were a nurse in World War II, and you fell in love with one of your fellow nurses, and you were the first lesbian nurse couple in history. Then the next one, she's like, you are President William Taft, Howard Taft, and the kid like salutes her.
Yeah.
Man, it's so great.
And then the third one is, you are a very old soul. This is going to be your last life.
You were the oldest soul in this room.
Sorry, Peter, was your hand up first?
Yeah, so I think like that is literally the strength of this movie. Like, it's selling us an exaggerated version of reality, but it's also not exaggerated that much, so that it's very, very it's still very believable and very much realistic in a sense. And I think that's what's so great about this movie. Like, there are, like you guys said, it's a mockumentary style, but there are types of mockumentaries where like the people inside the mockumentary actively makes fun of the things that they're doing. But like this movie, every character is very much engaged and buys into the theater camp vibe and the theater camp style, which is, I think, what makes this movie so great. Like, you have these kids that are being told like very, very mature themes and ideas. It's like, oh yeah, like they're acting out. I can't think of any examples from the top of my head. You guys can help me out, but like they're acting out some very, very mature subjects.
Like the cocaine thing at the end.
Yeah, the cocaine thing is one. Like the one where girls don't know how to read, right? Like the one.
That was so funny.
Yeah,
I have to talk about that later because that was. Don't spoil what that is yet, because that's so funny. We have to talk about that later.
Yeah, and the fact that I think what's so sweet about this movie is, even though these themes might not mean as much to these kids as like to a more mature or an older person, but they acted out with such faith and just like commitment that it's very, very moving. Like, for someone who understands how heavy and how sometimes maybe depressing some of these concepts are, it's very, very heartwarming to see like little kids acting these things out and actually like putting like a cheerful spin onto them in a sense. And I think that's just like the biggest strength of the movie.
Yeah, and I think specifically responding to that, I like that they do that. They show that the kids are acting out really mature things, and then they also go out of their way to show that they're like pretty innocent in one way, in some ways. Like
Yeah.
one of the like, there's the one scene where he goes like, "I heard that Troy smokes drugs," and it's like whatever.
Yes.
But
yeah.
I was going to say like, I really don't think, there are very many scenes in this that actually don't advance the plot. I actually think that this is a plot forward movie. I think that it is very clever to establish the play. Like they have to put on a show, and so it gives it a direction. It gives the whole movie a direction. We know it's leading up to that. There's a question as to whether or not it will happen because of the bank foreclosure thing. That's good. That's a very good end thing. That scene where Molly Gordon is talking to all the kids and doing the past lives thing, that's actually important. We need to see that they are preparing for the play. We need to see them training, because there's no payoff if we don't see them preparing for it, if we don't see them doing different exercises. And it actually doesn't matter too much what those exercises are. We just need to see that they're doing it, so that it feels like something's changed. It feels like we can feel that they've put so much into it when it finally happens. I think that's really important, actually.
Yeah, and it's part of the, like, to use the terminology of Save the Cat, like, it's the fun and games section.
Yeah.
It's the promise of the premise, right? You're watching a movie about theater camp, and you say, you imagine what that would look like. That's where 90% of those scenes are. Also, just commenting on, like, the adults things with kids, like, that's what's so funny about musical theater is, like, musical theater is often dealing with adult themes, and it's so funny that, like, kids are drawn to this and they love it. And they just kind of, like, it doesn't occur to them what, like, the full ramifications of what it is they're talking about. They don't get it. And so it's that dichotomy, I guess, of, like, this is a child who knows nothing, and they're pretending to be a French prostitute from Les Mis, right? Like, that's another example that's, like, directly from the movie.
Yeah. I wanted to get into favorite parts, actually, if we're feeling
just
that.
leap into it. Just jump right in.
So one of my favorite parts, we were just talking about it, but it's like right near the opening of the musical that they're playing at the end, and they're singing this song that quickly becomes about how women can't read, because it's set in it's like an immigrant woman set in like the
60s.
20th century. Yeah, in the 60s. And like she can't read, and so like the climax of this song is her struggling to read a newspaper, and she's like, Jeff got shot, and she turns it around, and it's JFK got shot as the headline.
Maybe they can read. Maybe they can read.
That made me. I thought that was so funny. That was hilarious.
And I just love what this movie does so well is character says or does weird thing and then cut away to like the best reaction shot. So that one's great. It's just like cutting to all the women in the audience going like,
oh yes, yeah.
They're all just like, and all manner of different reactions to that. What else? The second movie we've seen this year where JFK plays a role. Of course, Oppenheimer is the second one.
Yeah.
Just like mentioning, casually name dropping JFK. For me, I really like the she's using bit. So like we kind of talked about one that's one of my favorites.
I have a bunch that I can just rattle off. They're just like little jokes here and there. I got them written down.
I'll try and throw one in there in the meantime. Susie Essman's cameo at the end. She's the person who.
Oh, she's the hospital person?
She's
in the hospital.
Yeah. I was not a huge fan of that, and I'll tell you why. I think that there are a couple times, it's funny, there are a couple times where very emotional moments in this movie are undercut by a joke that I think kind of cheapens the sincere moment a little bit. That to me is one of them. I think I don't know exactly how you play that, because I think you have to bring the projector back, and on a certain level I understand that is a funny escalation of that we've seen her set up. The setup is that she's watching, or she's in a coma, and so there are not that many things you can do. Like, you'd expect her to either wake up or still be sleeping at the end of it, and the fact that it's another person, I understand it. I think it's clever on a level. I don't like that it's this very sincere moment about Joan and about them all coming together and how theater is like their home away from home and they need it. And then it's like this, like, what the hell was that? That was a great show. I don't love that.
Okay, I have to say, completely disagree. To just respond to your comment about it, I'll say that I think all of the sincerity is like handled with the song. I think the song nails it, and so like sincerity, I'm good. I've had enough, and this is also, we have to remember, it's a comedy movie, so I've got more sincerity than I might have bargained for in the comedy movie.
It is a comedy that's going for that though. That's also going for very sincere stuff, and I think it's doing it well. But yeah,
it's not full like sketch like Wet Hot American Summer. Probably I haven't seen that movie, so hard to say. But like it has like a real narrative to it, a real like emotional arc, and so I thought the end of the emotional arc was that song, and I like the idea that, and I think maybe it's like just personal preference, but in a comedy movie, I like the idea of you get your emotional ending, but you want the people, the audience, to leave on a positive, on a happy, fun note. And so I like the idea that like we bring back the projector gag too. Funny from the beginning. Like, it's not even just set up. The idea that they're projecting it to like someone who is comatose, like who is not present, and they're just like watching the hospital room of like person in coma. That's hilarious.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just figured out why it doesn't work for me because I forgot a detail about it.
Okay.
I don't like it because it cuts to Jimmy Tatro's character who says, "Oh, that's my bad. I set it up in the wrong thing." Because his arc is about how he cares about this stuff now, and he thinks it's really cool, and he apologizes to his mom in a seance for not taking it seriously before. Now he cares, and he did that wrong. Like, and not only it's fine that he did it wrong, but he doesn't care that he did it wrong. I don't like that. I think that even if he was just like, even if his reaction was different, he was like, oh fuck, like he was clearly distressed by it. I think that's even a funnier thing. That's what doesn't work for me.
No, I think it's fine. Cause like, I mean, like, to me, that moment was like a fun little comedy bit, but it's like sandwiched by really emotional bits on both ends. Like the emotional bits before that was like the whole musical, and the emotional bits after that was, even though the lady has nothing to do with theater camp, she still really enjoyed it, and she's like, oh my god, your kids are great, you know, you'll become big stars one day. And we also got like another little comedic bit afterwards where the real Joan woke up, was like, what were you talking about? Like, you know, and the lady was like, oh, you're sleeping through it. They were talking about the theater, not knowing her condition whatsoever. So like,
I haven't even had the opportunity like to talk about the actual reason I love the scene is Susie Essman. So she's from Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is where I know her from, and I've seen quite a bit of her in that show. And she's fantastic, great improver, very very funny comedian, and just the idea like it's so unexpected. And then like cut back to monitor or like the projector, and she's like, "Oh, bravo, well done. I'm not Joan, but very nice, guys." And then cuts away, and like you said, Joan played by, we also didn't talk about this, played by Amy Sedaris, who I also really like. Yes, she's. I know she's not for like our generation, but I keep seeing her. She's the one of the main characters in BoJack. Voice. Okay. One of the main. You know her from Mando. She's curly-haired Peli.
Oh, she's the joy lady.
The droid lady.
Oh, okay.
She's the droid lady. So you've seen her before, but she was bigger in the 2000s, I'd say, and she's just so funny to me. Like, just again, we don't like, our generation doesn't really know her. So just like, she wakes up and the first thing she says is, Don't let Troy run the camp. And then Susie's like, "Oh, you missed this lovely show. It was all about your life. I saw your whole life and the camp. I loved every minute." And she says, "Do you know how I got here?" Which is like probably like pretty much explained in the show. And she's like, No idea. Or maybe it wasn't explained in the show, but just the idea that like she just fully has no idea.
Well,
I thought
what I do like about that part of the joke as well is that it's almost an implication that like they didn't even talk about like how she got into a coma in the play. Like they just glazed over that part in the play. Like that's how I had taken it, and I do think that's funny. But I guess agree to disagree.
Not gonna lie,
I think it's a funny bit. But, yeah.
Just like a quick side note, the way she got into a coma, like. Initially, when I was watching the scene, I was like, "That is such a weird way for her to get a seizure." But then, as I was thinking back of it, it's caused by a strobe light, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's so funny!" But like in the moment, it wasn't funny to me. But thinking back, it's actually hilarious.
It's funny. The first time I saw this movie, I saw it with my brother and my cousin, and we were the only people in the theater.
Oh
and
no!
It was like the middle of the day, and that scene happened again. Going in knowing who Amy Sedaris is, I'm like, oh, this is already funny to me. And then they're doing like Bye Bye Birdie, and she has a seizure in the middle of it from a strobe light. I was laughing, and it cuts to like text as well that she's like, like she suffered it explains what happened, and
it's the like, first major injury of the Bye Bye Birdie production.
Bye Bye Birdie related injury in this county. Like it has to specify too, like in this specific county, first one of its kind. And I was laughing so hard, and my relatives were just like, "What the fuck?" Like,
dude. Like initially when I was watching it didn't hit me. But thinking back, it's funny, you know. So
what I like is that I just like the irony of like she was blinded by the light, and that's what put her into a coma.
Oh,
like this is like she was so devoted to this. Like I just think there's some nice dramatic kind of stuff going on there. We can talk about more parts that are good.
I have some parts.
Peter.
So the tap sequence, I'm like, I don't know why, but like, I like the tap sequences in like any movie. Just like, I eat that shit up, bro. Like in La La Land, in this, I mean, well, to be fair, they're all very, very well done. It's so cool, and also just the fact that even though the production, like you can tell the production is very low budget and everything. It's like very, very well done though. Like the cocaine sequence, the tapping, the traveling overseas, and like just like in general, like when you like see good art, you just like you feel good. Like it's just so much positive vibes emanating from all of these scenes. It's just a fantastic experience. So I have more points though, but Alex, I'll let you comment on that.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the Wall Street noise scene. Love like how it's like all the songs in this sound like Broadway songs.
Yeah, like real musicals, absolutely.
But almost I read about this. Very, very few Broadway songs are actually in this movie because the rights would cost too much. So the only ones that I know are in it for sure are two of the audition songs. One of them is from Waitress. One of them is from Wicked. All the other ones, as far as I could tell, are fake, which is amazing because they do not sound fake. They sound real. They know, like, I think it's Sondheim. I think that's who they're emulating. The da 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 da. And I was like, it's jazz, but it sounds.
That's like the West Side Story guy, right?
Yes, yeah. Into the Woods, and he's very prolific in the 20th century. But the Wall Street Noise, what else I was going to say? The kids in that scene blew me away. Like, already I was quite impressed, but, like, that scene, the tapping is really, really well done. And the kid who's singing during the scene, Young Joan, when she does the Wall Street noise and that note, I was like, wow, I was quite impressed with that.
That was crazy.
Yeah, and then also, it's set up earlier. Very satisfying finale where all of these songs have been set up in various stages of production. So that one was they're talking about it in the writing rehearsal. They're like, it's tap, and they're like they're figuring it out. I love that.
Yeah,
I
and
really,
also
sorry, Peter.
Sorry, Aiden, go ahead.
No,
I have a different point. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I just want to respond to that really quick. Yeah, what I like about that as well is that it feels like it's intentionally supposed to sound so much like a Broadway song. Like, I think on one level, like, it's funny, like, it's not parody, but like it's
parody.
It's parodying itself a little bit, where it's like yeah, of course, like this is what it sounds like, and they're very much like within this. And I think that it also is funny that like it's a good character detail for both of the main characters, for the two teachers, because it's like they care so much. Like it implies that like they're so involved in theater and they just know all of this that like the moment they see like, okay, we have a scene in the stock exchange, obviously it's gonna be a song like this, and oh yeah, okay, it's gonna be tap, and like, you know, like they just like know, and it's just like an obvious. They don't have to speak about it. I think it's a good character detail as well.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say, like, since we were talking about the auditions a bit, I love the guy. I forgot his name. I think it's like Owen or something. Like he came out and started saying "Better Now" by Post Malone. That was so funny. Oh my god! And the choice reaction to it, and then the two teachers talking about, hey, we can't give feedback during the audition. Internalize that. Oh my god, that was so good. Just a brilliantly executed sequence. Like that was very fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, no, I really like the how he gets involved, and he's like, yeah, this is something I can get down to. He starts dancing. He's like, what up, man?
Do you know more Post Malone?
yeah. And also like that's that kid is like another outsider. We've got a lot of outsider characters, which really helps us. So you've got the one who's the kid now as well, and they have their moment of interaction of like, yeah, isn't this a weird, very strange place, and we're just trying to like figuring out like what this world is like.
Yeah, I think what I really like is that he's an outsider, but he's not like ostracized. Like he's enough of an outsider.
No,
that
for sure.
Like I think that it paints a good thing of like this is an environment for all types of kids, and they can all be there. You know what I mean?
And he's very engaged with it too. He's not like and I think it wouldn't work if he just like made fun of it. If he's like one of the lakeside kids, like, oh, what are these kids doing? They are such weirdos. Yeah. But instead, like he's actively trying to be like the theater kids.
Yeah, he's a bit of a different type of kid, but he cares about it as much as they do.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's like, you know, one of the major strengths of the movie as well, where like it's just so lovable to see. Like, I mean, you know, there are some interesting, the kids nowadays are very interesting. And there's just like a very, I guess, naive and wholesome view of like, you know, children just being so passionate about something, even though like to an outsider it seems so strange and so out of the blue, but they're able to be fully engaged with, you know, this such you know, to an outsider it seems very strange and very very weird, but all the kids are very much into it and passionate about it. I think that's just so cool.
Yeah. And it's we didn't really talk about this, but also like I think our viewing experiences were probably quite different because you guys are definitely outsiders, I think, more or less, to like this world, but like this I'm quite familiar with. So,
have you been to theater camps?
Not like that. Like I've never been to a sleepaway camp.
Yeah.
But I definitely did do some like 2-week theater camp at like Mini U, you know?
Right.
Oh, I mean, we also did that one in New York, Alex, you and I.
Yes, okay. I would guess I would sort of count that. That was like a long weekend, but yeah, I've done 2 where I was a kid in this, and then one I think was also 2 weeks where I was like an assistant counselor. So I'm quite familiar with how a theater camp looks like and just like that world in general. Yeah. And so I'll just pose this as we can return to the favorite part after, but I'll pose this as a question. Like,
sure.
I was like really enjoying all the in jokes and like I feel like that added to the experience of being like, oh, like just like the familiarity of it all. It felt like putting on an old coat, an old winter jacket I've not worn, and I was like, oh, you again, you know, like. But you guys, this is kind of like new stuff for you. I'm sure you got like some of it, but just maybe do you want to say like what that felt like?
Yeah, well, I would say the vast majority of the jokes and the things in this movie are things that could be understood by just about anyone. I think that it's only like bits and pieces where it's like, okay, I didn't get that joke, but there are even times where it's like, I don't get the reference, but like, you get it. Like I get, it's like, oh, I get that like they mention a name and it's like, oh, that's funny because this name is this type of person. Like I get it. You know what I mean? Like you understand it because I think they're well constructed jokes, and so you just understand it on a certain level. Like there's one where the one dance teacher is like he like points out the way one of the kids is moving, and he says like a couple terms that I did recognize.
It's a cheetah
like,
flick.
yeah,
Cheetah
you're
flick.
doing that, and I was like, I don't know what that is, but I get it. Like I get the joke there. Like that's
The
funny.
emotional message still translates very much.
Yeah. No, I thought, and then the ones that I didn't get at all, I was like, that's cool. They made a movie. This movie is like partially for like people that went to theater camp, and I think that's good. And I don't think they alienated the people who didn't as well.
Yeah, like to me, I don't think there was like any problem understanding it. Well, partially because we took drama as part of the as
You
part of high
did
school.
take drama, so you got some with that. I'm sure.
I also
So-
took theater acting classes in university.
It's
Yeah.
also true.
I knew a little bit. There were, so when they said like Chekhov, like whatever, I was like, I get it. I know who that is. I studied that fella.
And I think like when you're someone who's like involved in that space, in like even like to me it's like very minimum. It like you one thing is passion always translates. So like when you see passion on screen, like you can relate to it. So that's one. And then the other is like even if you have very minuscule understanding of the space, you understand that it's a space where you drop all judgment and just let your creative vision, let your inner creativity run wild. And I think that's, you know, that can translate to anyone who has like some sort of creative experience whatsoever. So you don't really need like a good understanding of theater. Like for example, like one of the things that are you know, like straight plays versus musicals. I didn't know what straight plays were going in, to be fair. But like you can obviously tell that, you
That's a
know,
funny
it's
joke.
not straight plays and gay plays. It's like straight plays is a different type of plays that are not musicals. Like you get that right away. But then so that joke is still funny to you even though you don't know what straight plays are. So
Yeah.
I think
Even, like,
the movie does a very good job, honestly. Like just, you know, making the jokes easy to understand for people.
Yeah, even as someone who like has like actual lived experience in theater camps, like not all the lingo is stuff that we've used. So like the one you just said, straight plays. Like I would never actually like I've never said that. I would just call it a play. But I also like I think what you're saying is like you can pick it up from context. Like
Yeah.
straight when he says straight plays and musicals, you're like, oh, the straight play just means not a musical.
not a musical.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. And then, and like you said, it's a great joke when he says,
The joke is funny.
what would a gay play be then?" And he's like, "I guess that's a musical." What I was gonna? Oh, also, you're kind of selling yourself short, Peter. I forgot you were a techie. You were one of the.
Oh yes, I did
You were a
do
Glenn.
I did do lights, yes. And
Do you want
and
to tell that
honestly,
fun story?
there are no fun stories. I mean, do you
There's a
want?
fun story.
Are you talking about the crocodile one?
Yes.
Oh, we're thinking about the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So, what is the play called again? It's like Star something. I know it's about Peter Pan, but like, what is the name of that play?
Star Catcher something. It's a Peter Pan like adjacent like
Prequel.
like based
prequel.
on
Yeah. It's a
Prequel.
Peter Pan prequel. Yeah.
Black Stash.
It's in the Neverland CU.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Uh,
Anyways, it doesn't matter what it's called.
Yeah, so basically, there are sound effects that we play during the play. And so there's like a funny scene somewhere in the play where one of the characters farts and then, you know, people make fun of him. But there's also like well, if you know the story of Peter Pan, like, there is a big alligator crocodile. I'm not actually sure if it's a crocodile or alligator. Where like we want to make it seem very scary, so we add like a growling sound of the crocodile in the sound effects. But because it's a school production, we don't have like all of the music queued up. Like they're supposed to play, you know, at this time they're supposed to play. It's very much all done manually. So when the sequence happens, the crocodile surfaces from the water, about to bite off Captain Hook's hand. Instead of playing the scary noise, we played the fart sound. And the best part is, the audience didn't notice. The audience didn't realize that we made a mistake. It's the people who are in on it laughing their asses off. And that was hilarious. That was a great time. Great time in the tech booth.
That's gotta be like one of those things where like
Yeah.
you're so in it that a slight mistake, you just like register it as like normal. What is that? That's a thing.
That
I
is a
don't know.
thing.
Wait, are you talking about like audience or like actors that are
From
on
the
stage?
audience perspective of being like just so into the story that you don't register the mistake because you're not focusing on it.
Yeah.
And it's like
Like you're very
close.
immersed. You're like transported to the world, etc.
It's also like let's say like fart and roar are also like sort of close.
No, they were not.
Could like, as opposed to like a duck
Potentially sort of.
quack. You know. Anyways.
But yeah.
I was just gonna say that I think I also like I also have the experience of I've done acting classes and like theater stuff in university. I actually also did theater when I was in elementary school. I just stopped doing it. I was in fact Mowgli in our production of The Jungle Book in grade 6. That was fun.
You were Mowgli.
I was in fact
Wow.
Mowgli in The Jungle Book. But I would say like I think what also translated is that I always my parents like every 2 years will bring me to a play, and it's been a thing my entire life, and I always hated it as a kid. Like me and my brother like dreaded the day that we had to go to a play. And it wasn't until like I got later in high school where I started watching like musicals every now and then. My parents stopped dragging me, but every now and then there'd be like a field trip. And I was like, wow, musicals are awesome. Musicals are really fun. And like my favorite plays to watch genuinely were my high school musicals that my high school put on. I thought those were so much fun to watch. And so I think what did translate is that sense of like community and a bunch of people that just came together and really cared. And I think that that's always fun to see. I love to see stories about people who just care so much about these things.
Yeah, and I think this movie really shines in that respect. Like that's the theme, and it's the obvious theme. It's the safe theme, but I think they do it just so well. And that like it could have come off as like cliche or insincere, and I don't think that's.
But it
true
just
at all
feels
with this
right.
movie. It feels right, and I love that like Troy doesn't even need to have like this super like explained backstory or like a super sad backstory of like disconnect from his mother. It doesn't need to be that. He's just feels isolated in this camp as like the kind of like the outsider, and there's this community he doesn't understand, and him trying to find his way in is just so great. And I love like that his guide through it all is Glenn, who also doesn't feel like he belongs or feels like he hasn't, like while he's in it, he doesn't feel what's the right word? He doesn't feel like fully noticed, like properly, like no one's actually acknowledged him for who he actually is. And I love their little dynamics of how they keep like crossing paths, and then he's acting as like that guide, and it's Troy who then comes around and gives Glenn the opportunity to be who he was. I forgot about it this time actually, but I noticed it originally. How does Troy know that Glenn has those skills? Because he was never there.
Didn't Troy see when he was dancing during the spotlight thing? Didn't Troy see that?
I thought he didn't, but I could be wrong. Maybe he did. I don't know.
Maybe.
But I remember
I
I
didn't register it as an error watching it though. I was just like, he knows. I don't know.
Yeah.
So maybe like I don't know what happened, but
I will say I totally missed Tim on the first go around when they were like, and Tim saved the camp. I was like, who? The Airbnb.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the Airbnb. That was very random,
Totally
but that was
missed it the
fun.
first time.
Yeah.
yeah, there is a thing that happens in those movies where there's so many characters, and I don't think this is a flaw. It's just something that happens. There's so many characters, and we hear so many names that it's like I did not necessarily know. Like when I think they just call her Diane for this scene too for some reason. But when Rebecca Diane doesn't show up for the night performance in the cabin, and he's just like Diane wasn't there. I think.
Oh yeah. I didn't register.
And I was just like I do not know who Diane is.
Same.
And then after like he talks to her, and I was like, oh okay, I understand. I don't think that's a flaw. I don't think there's really any way around that. That's just what it is.
I agree. Like especially among the kids, like I can't really tell them apart. Like like what character is what. Like I think there's like, well, I mean,
you see them and you're like, oh, that guy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the only one that stood out is probably the girl who got an audition to actually work on a set because she had quite a bit of screen time. But then all the other kids were sort of just kids, you know. In
well,
the camp
I think they're actually differentiated quite well, though. I think that you get bits of characterization, and I think the moment you see them and you see them start to do things, you're like, it's this kind of kid, and I like that.
I agree.
It's also kind of understated. Like they don't feel the need to like comment on it and like overdo like, oh, I'm this kind of kid who does this. Like it's just authentically, the characters feel very authentic, and I think that's very
absolutely
nice.
Yeah.
I have a funny thing to bring up that is just kind of a random detail. So during the opening of this movie, or near the beginning, they show some footage of Troy, Jimmy Tatro's character, as a kid. I think it's very funny that some of that exact same footage is used for a similar scene in American Vandal.
Wait, so it's actually
literally like two of the same clips, because it is just him as a kid. Like,
that's so funny. Oh my god.
And I think
movies do this all the time.
Yeah, and I think that it's just funny that it's like the one where he's like on a scooter and he's like coming out of a house, like that. That is in American Vandal.
That's so funny.
I think that's funny.
I really love that in this movie. I mean, that's funny. That's very funny. But I love that in this movie, that is the comp to the theater home videos from before. Like that's what opens the movies, the theater home videos. And it's like, isn't theater so great? And to introduce the character who doesn't get it, we see his version of those home videos. And it's like, here's the person who's like the quote unquote regular kid, but also in his own way, very strange, very weird guy. Man, I also like, I can't get over like how great Troy is as like the closest thing to like the lead character of this movie. I love that he's just so weird, and again, not the straight person in all the scenes. Sometimes he's quite stupid and like just like not business savvy. I like the idea like
entrepreneurship.
I love the idea that like the movie is hung on a trope of we need to save the camp, financial issues. One of those things where it's like we're actually relying on the trope in a really good way so that we don't really have to worry about it, and we're focusing on like the details of it, the fun. It's, you know, people have familiarity with it so that we don't need to really get into it. But it's also like Troy is just so stupid and bad at business that like he's making it so much harder than it needs to be. So he he just like accidentally signs the camp away, and he's like, I didn't even realize. Totally buy it. Like all the things that have led up to that moment, I'm like, nah, that sounds about right. He just does not. I was like, oh, I should have read the mail. Like really obvious thing.
Dude,
at the end, this is a very small point. At the very end, when the text was, you know, they were like doing some exposition through text on screen. One of them was Troy started writing a book called "You Can't Spell Community Without Coma."
I want to say there's a very funny Troy moment that's just it's a little thing near the beginning where he's looking at a poster that says "Playbill" and he just says "Play ball."
I don't think I ever really understood that. I get it now. Okay. That's funny. I just know that like I remember him like touching the woman in the picture of it, and I don't know who that is. I don't know all the famous people in the theater community, but he's like, yeah, she's kind of hot. It's just like, of course, the most superficial thing. What's also great about Troy, I guess, I'll say this, is like his emotional arc is actually very poignant and strong. I think like that while the feeling of disconnect is played for laugh, it's also like the scene where there's the in the Jones Still play, the song about Troy hits me every time. Like when he's watching during rehearsals and he's like it makes him really sad. I was like, oh man, this is really good. And they do it again at the end, and I'm like, it's just still like so powerful. Like just a really well written song, a really nice moment.
And I think it also ties into the whole like truth and artifice sort of thing that I think is really, really important. That's a
Yeah.
really good scene. Yeah.
It's also like that scene in the rehearsal's really good because it's like the crisscrossing of all of the different plots. So Troy comes into the rehearsal of like the big show, and then he's saddened by the stuff like remembering his mom. It's bringing up those feelings. He calls away Rebecca Diane, which furthers the divide between Rebecca Diane and Amos, because he's like, oh, there she goes again, and she's like upset that has to happen, and it's also like the vehicle again through Troy's like just insane stupidity through which she finds out that the camp is being sold. I'm not even sure she does anything with that information, but like it's a well like constructed scene of like all these things kind of like colliding.
Well, I also don't think she has to do anything in particular with it, because part of the point of that scene is also that like that's the first time we're finding out it too, so that's him telling us really as well.
That's true. Yes.
And so I think that's why like it works that like we don't need to see immediate fallout of that really badly.
Yeah.
And well, we did see the immediate fallout because the demolition people came in shortly after.
Oh, true. Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, so yeah, secret's out very quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That scene's also great where he's like doing the seance and he thinks he's talking to his mom and he's like, yeah, these people are all really weird, especially Rebecca Diane, who he's talking to, and their face, she's just like what the fuck? What else can we talk about? Speaking of Rebecca Diane, I noticed that her issue is like she can't write the finale, and it's because she can't sever ties. Like she's still holding on, and so she can't actually end the show. She can't end her time at camp, and so like that's like all like tied together thematically. Yeah, good shit. I like it.
I also wanted to talk. Whoa, mine's a different point, so you go really quick.
Okay, that's actually the part that made me cry when it started singing the finale song, and it's like.
The finale song.
Like initially when Rebecca Diane was singing it, it sounded like so pieced together, so random, so bad basically. And then when the kids started singing it, even though the lyrics are the exact same, but because the rhythm they use, the tone, etc., like it sounded really fucking good. And then and then like we at the same moment, Amos and Rebecca Diane finally made up. Like it was just so beautiful, man. Like. That moment made me cry. That was the part that I teared up.
I totally agree. Yeah. It's a fantastic song. The whole like camp isn't home, but also
but it sort of is.
Kind of it is. But just like they say camp isn't home, but the way it's sung, the two words like what's in between camp and home doesn't really matter. You get it? Yeah. Like because the meaning is camp is home, so. Yeah. The kind of isn't the negative drops away and you just feel the meaning of camp is home and it really works. And then they also layer in something like we fly or something. I don't know. Like they layer all these like really nice messages, and I agree that was another part that got me teared up. Aiden had something to say.
I had a quick like formalistic thing. I think that we didn't talk too much about the documentary style. I think there are a few things I really, really like about it. I mentioned the nostalgic look that I think operates really well. I think it also, like you said, it lets the plot develop in a certain way where we have little bits and it reflects the documentary style, and I think that works really well. I also think that the documentary style helps make sense of the chaos of the movie, because it's like if you are doing a doc, you're not going to find a completely linear plot most of the time. And it is going to feel like this kind of all over the place thing, so I like that. Another thing I fucking hate when movies do a mockumentary style, and then they betray that. Like they start doing shots that like a documentary crew could not have gotten, and they start doing that. And so I like that they committed to that. One final thing about documentary style, I think that it allows them to be like really fluid and really energetic in certain scenes. That help really well. Like when what's the guy's name who is Old Joan at the end? What's the character's name again?
Glenn.
Glenn? Yeah, when Glenn is first doing the dance thing and we have like these sweeping shots under the stage that feel very real to concert videography, something Alex and I know a lot about. Um,
Whoa.
but yeah. But I think it imbues the scene with a lot of energy, and so I think they do a good job of making it feel natural to the documentary style, but also choosing shots that help instill the scenes with the correct mood.
I completely agree. I was making some notes as well about the formalistic elements. Like the whole thing is handheld, it looks so nice. Sometimes like handheld just like hits me the right way, and I'm like, oh, that looks great. They use long lenses not all the time, but a lot of the time, so that they're like it's like they're spying in on conversations they're not supposed to hear. But that also doesn't. They're not limited to that. There's a couple instances I can distinctly remember of them going quite wide, and interesting like lower angles, like the Glenn dance scene you mentioned. I wrote something and I have no idea what that means. I like the framing. There's when Ben Platt is hanging his T-shirts, they frame him through their T-shirts. I love that. The lighting is quite good sometimes. Like when they're in the back rooms and they can do like the backstage. I mean, and there's like color. The blues and the reds is quite fun. Troy's like maybe his first scene in the camp with the window light. And he's like, yeah, without my ring light, but I'm making do.
Oh yes,
like,
yes.
Still feels more or less like verite, but also just like that's really gorgeous.
Yeah.
The inserts they do as well are nice. Like there's the inserts of like the bullhorn or the quick moment of like the boys putting on like makeup is a nice little touch as well. And it's like it's supposed to be like a surprise gag of like, oh look, inserts of like painting nails and putting on lipstick, and then cut to wide and surprise, it's the boys doing this and not the girls. And I thought that was a fun, like very documentary style gag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like you said, the energy. The scenes I thought you would bring up were like when the kids get the cast list and they're running, and you got like the hustle, like the feeling of the camera running with them, or when Ben Platt is running after Darla, the kid who's like leaving at the show. Oh, I love that bit where he's like, Darla, come back, and like they're like really trying to keep up with him. I like that.
Wait, actually, just a quick question on that. So was Glenn always supposed to take Darla's role, or was that decided like very last minute when Darla is like leaving?
It was decided last minute. It's the moment where it's basically like when Jimmy comes and talks to him, and they have like a day left. They have like 24 hours before the show goes on, and he's like, "You got to do this. You got to step up." And so the implication is that he both stepped in to direct the end of it because they didn't block out the finale. And then he also, the implication is that he also like.
Wait, so then why is Amos chasing after Darla then? If he
because he doesn't find that out. He doesn't find that out until he reads the program.
So you might know this, but like programs have little slips of paper. They'll
insert where like
if there's
someone
a cast
is like
change.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like that's how he picks it up very clearly, and that's how he finds out because he's like ticking himself
he had been
away
sulking
from the project
for a while. Yeah.
So he just like didn't know what was happening with it. He finds out it's still happening, and then he's like, wait, Darla's not in this, and he chases after her. So it's implied that everyone else knew before he did.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, what else can we talk about? There's like I could talk about this.
I could rattle off a bunch of funny moments, but I think I have said my piece for the things I really want to talk about.
Here's something interesting. It's quite obvious, I think, but when I was looking into this movie on Wikipedia, I was confirmed that a lot of this movie is improv. And what I think is interesting, it's
I don't think it overstays its welcome. I could tell. I don't think it's surprising to hear that. I don't think it overstays its welcome. I don't think it's ever like a loose gag that just spins into nothing. I think it gets to its point and then it's over.
This is why I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
I think so. Because
that is very impressive. That's sick.
Peter, I don't think you were there for it, but when we talked about Bottoms, similar movie in the idea that comedy, where a lot of it was improvised, and Ayo Edebiri is also in it. And we had quite a lot of problems with that movie. It just didn't work. This one, I think the improv is, like you said, doesn't overstay its welcome, but also I think just like it really fits the world, I guess, and maybe
Yeah.
also the
Because
documentary
it is theater.
style.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's
yeah.
theater. Like these people are supposed
Yeah.
to be weird, and
And it
because,
should
like,
feel spontaneous. and,
because
yeah.
improv is like basically theater people just being themselves and like being their most theatery. When they're improving here, it's like, yeah, they're being weirdos. Like that's that. Like I say weirdos lovingly, you know,
Yeah.
but like that's who they are normally. And whereas improv in Bottoms feels like they're stepping out of the character
Yeah.
they're supposed to be in that movie, and they're becoming a theater kid. So in that, it feels like that's a different person.
I see.
What else can we talk about? Cast is great. We didn't really talk, like, Patty Harrison is in this.
Yeah, Patty. Yeah.
To bring that up.
Yeah.
I
Very
was
funny.
surprised when she was. I was like, "Oh, it's you!
Yeah.
I know you!"
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
she's
a lot
great.
of like mainstays of like comedy right now are in this movie.
Yeah. No, this is kind of a stacked cast.
I've said my piece. Is it all?
I have also said
Yeah.
my piece. I think.
Sounds like a lot of people have said their piece. I'm still holding on. I'm trying to see if I have anything else.
You probably
Cue
think that
cocaine.
you are better now. Better now. Not a
Dude, it's such a fitting ending song too. You know, it was.
Yeah. Oh, I liked the bit with the founding ballers. I just love that whole idea of like, yeah, the founding ballers, and then they're like, the founding ballers love the show. Cut away like to text. The founding ballers love the show, except they're bankrupt and they're being investigated by the SEC. I love that. And last thing I'll say, there's a moment when Amos is watching the show he like created in like Still Joan. He's like watching it, and then he realizes like, oh, I actually like I like teaching. I like being here.
Yeah.
And it's the last song I think, and he's like, oh, like I actually do need to stay here. Like this is my calling, not being a performer. Anyways, we can, again, like I said, I could talk about this all day. So let's move on. Aiden, we have a segment.
We do have a segment. So in case you haven't noticed, the podcast is called Predator versus Movies. We've done the Predator part. Now, we know we've done the movie part. Now it's time to get to the Predator. We asked the question, would this movie be better if the Predator from the movie Predator was in it?
Okay, Aiden, I swear to God, you made the same mistake last week.
I think I butchered that. I butchered that about 50% of the time.
Every time we flip a coin, heads you get it, tails you don't.
Absolutely.
They should be doing a
no,
Predator musical.
It would not be better,
Ooh.
but that would be a good place for that alien of ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree though. No.
Who
Predator does not
wins?
fit. Who wins? Who
wins?
fights the Predator? Troy versus the Predator.
I guess Troy versus the Predator, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it goes well. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think it
wins.
goes
well
well,
for
bro.
Theater
Usually we
kids-
have some angle where we're like, yeah, I think they could maybe in this, but like, no, I think they just lose.
Yeah.
Look, in a head-to-head like
It's a little tough.
solo competition, I don't think Predator has anything on these kids. I'll say that. I'll say like solo as in like singing, not solo
Oh, okay.
combat.
Yeah, I was just-
I'll
yeah, I was
clarify,
just
solo
saying.
could mean different things. But no, I think head-to-head combat, I think these kids are not doing well.
They are losing. Yeah.
Peter, we have a segment that happens after this one.
We do have a segment. It's called Predator's Picks. What movie have you guys seen recently? I personally have not seen anything.
Good job, Peter. Let's hear from Aiden.
Sure. So I've been in my horror kind of vibes. I was picking up from last week when I watched A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. I watched A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Interesting title because he is not getting revenge on anyone in that movie. It has nothing to do with revenge. So that's what I don't know why they called it that. I give it 3 stars. I think that like with just a little tweaking and like a little just some changes here and there, this could be like a brilliant movie. It could be like
Really?
it's actually like there are some great ideas in it, and there's some great moments, and there's some moments of great directing and other moments of I think not as great directing, but I think there are great. It's like essentially, so there's one thing that I think could immediately make it better. I won't go into my whole spiel about it, but so
Well,
if
I'm
they
curious, so.
if they said it instead of saying that it's a continuation of like the first one, which they do because they mention events from the first one, it very clearly happened after the first one. If instead of doing that, they just said this is like another world and it's just like another story and a different version of Freddy Krueger, that would work way better. Because right off the hop, if you're trying to think about this movie with the rules of the first one, it doesn't make any sense. Freddy can just suddenly do a bunch of things he couldn't do without any explanation, and he can't do things that he could do in the first one. And so it's like his whole goal is different, and the way he goes about killing is different in this one. It's basically like a possession thing. And so I think the idea is that he is like targeting this one kid and trying to essentially like possess him through dreams. And I think like he's trying to like use him as like a bridge into the real world, but it's just not made clear that that's what he's doing. And I think that also there's also this idea that he's like the more powerful he gets, he's like able to bring kind of dream logic and dream rules to the real world, and like that's like his power. But it's also not clear that that's what's happening. I just don't have another explanation for things that happen in the movie. And so I think if they clarified some things, if they escalated the possession plot a little bit better, there's some really great moments. There's some really cool like practical effects and visual parts. There's like specifically around the possession too, like some just really cool things. But it's very confusing as to like what actually happened, which on some level is a strength of Nightmare on Elm Street movies, to blur the line between dream and reality. But I don't think it's done super well in this movie. That's my whole spiel about it. But if you watch it, I think you'll see what I mean. That's like there are some really interesting ideas in it. Other movie I watched is *Malignant*. This is a James Wan directed movie that came out a couple years ago. I saw a Letterboxd review that was like 20 minutes into this movie, oh man, this is it, this sucks. And then 80 minutes into this movie, let's fucking go, keep going, holy shit. And that is how I felt about it as well. The first part of this movie, it's like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know.
That was Peter in this movie.
Good. Yeah.
That was Peter with Theater Camp.
Dude, like, it never becomes like a great movie, but it's so much fun towards the end. Like, the more they ramp it up, and like, they have a bunch of action sequences in it that are like really high, like kind of elevated action. The murder scenes, like it's really more of a slasher than anything else, even though I was expecting more of like a kind of a haunting paranormal story. But it's not. It is that, but it's not. It's more of a slasher, like in at its core. But it's very fun. I gave it 3.5 stars, but especially towards the end, it's very, very fun. That's
you know what's weird? You know what's weird about *Malignant*? That's like the first and only movie called *Malignant*, right?
I think I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Why do I feel like that's like the latest? Every time I heard about that movie, I was like, oh, like that's like the new *Malignant*.
Oh,
like,
it's definitely
like,
not a remake, yeah. Well,
like
that might be because there's *Insidious*, which is also a James Wan involved horror series. And
I think it must have been that, because I thought it was like the next like *Insidious*, but a series of *Malignants*.
Yeah,
so
it
like,
seems
this is like the latest *Malignant*.
Especially the way it was marketed, it seemed like it was a very like kind of Conjuring, Insidious. It seemed like it was one of those. I mean, it is James Wan, and it's like a similar vibe in some ways, but it's separate. Yeah.
It's a great title, I will say. Yeah. I would buy a movie called *Malignant*. I've seen a couple movies. Actually, you had said this movie last week, and when I was looking for a movie the other day, I was like, oh right, Aiden had said he saw that movie, and I was like, I should finally see it. So I saw Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. I have seen the original, and I thought it was pretty good. I don't know.
You thought it was just pretty good? I thought the movie was incredible.
See, that's the thing. Is like maybe it's because I went in with that, and that's kind of like a hard thing to go into a movie with. Like oh, I'm gonna watch a nearly perfect movie, and then I was like, yeah, no, I think it was pretty good. I can see what you mean about the ending, because I kept thinking about it, and it didn't help that you had brought it up too. So I was like, how does this have to play? And it also like does not matter. Like that ending does not matter until like the very end. So I kept thinking
it's the last thing. Yeah.
So like that's why I was watching. I was like, like, is it? Have I already been like? Is it now? Like, is that applied now? And I thought like the whole time I was like, no, there couldn't be. And then I was right, so it wasn't until the very end. But the movie itself, I think the main actor, Donald Sutherland, very cool. Jeff Goldblum is in this. Young Jeff Goldblum. Leonard Nimoy is in this.
Leonard Nimoy's in it.
Spock himself. I thought the main lady was Karen Allen for a bit. The
oh really? Yes. The Indiana
Jones. Marion for a bit, and then I was like, no, that's not her. I'm still like so confused how the invasion of the Body Snatchers like how that works, and it by
really?
the end it's made very explicitly clear with like right at the end how it works. I thought I knew, and I think I kind of like was on the right track the whole time, but I was always like, but which one stays? And like also they never like fully explain the kind of wool thing. I think that's like
that kind of come out.
The stuff that like is going in the garbage trucks. I like that they could just keep seeing, like, you see it in the background.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, what is that? But like I actually never knew. Was it the humans? I think maybe.
I think
like
so.
The human
I think it was them all
carcass,
cocooned up in the.
What's left of the humans is going in the garbage truck. Yeah. I thought that was cool. Yeah, I really what I really like is that it's a movie so clearly about like having an affair and cheating and like relationships, but it's like aliens. So it's like the idea of like you wake up one day and the person you loved is just suddenly a different person, and it's framed like the main characters are having this affair, and while the A plot is like aliens, it speaks to the themes of like the relationship and what's going on between them, and then eventually like the whole kind of like authorial comment, I guess, about it is like one day you're gonna realize the person you're having the affair with like is also like it's just gonna keep happening. You're gonna wake up one day and it's a new person. Like that's how I read it, or like that's kind of like what it's sort of about. I don't know if that's the conclusion it comes to, but
I took the broader meaning to be more about like thinking about like what is a human, and I think that's like and how do we know each other, what constitutes a person and how they change, and like the unspoken, undefinable qualities we have, and that was more what I was thinking. But I think that ties into, I think that's kind of two similar thoughts.
And yeah, I mean, I think the ending's pretty cool. So like I understand how it's kind of upsetting that it's takes away the mystery of it, but I like there's a good like 3 minutes where you're not sure, and I think it's a cool 3 minutes, and then I kind of like to end on such like a high note is I was like, oh, that's a pretty baller move. It ruins it, but it's
I don't think it ruins it at all. I think it's way stronger if he with the current ending.
No, okay, so I thought that you had said something about that. Okay. No, I think it's a very strong ending, and like going into his mouth is really fun. Yeah. No, so I thought it was quite enjoyable. I saw 2 other movies. I've been continuing my Sydney Lumeathon. I don't know why I watched this movie. It's called King of the City. It's one from the 80s. It's very similar to Serpico in that it's a movie where about corruption in the police force. This time it's interestingly coming from the side of the police officer who's doing the corrupting, but is also, I think same as Serpico, is like being the rat. So we've seen Serpico the rat, Al Pacino, who is on the good side, who is like never taken a bribe, but now we're seeing it from the crook side, the person who has been taking the bribes and is betraying his friends. And at first he's like, I will not. It's what that thing, like you said about like Milos's thing is like, you establish a character rule. He's very firm at the beginning. I will not rat on my friends. You can imagine what happens later.
Right.
And it's like tied up with the mob, and it's all about like wiretapping. A great example, kind of like you said, this movie does like time periods well. Feels like like kind of like an epic character study kind of movie. I think it does that quite well. It's
Like
long.
There Will Be Blood kind of thing.
Yeah. She's long though. It's almost 3 hours. I bought it or rented it. Did not look up how long it was, and then looked at and I was like, oh my god. So actually I had to do it in 2 parts because I did not budget my time to finish a 3-hour movie when I started it. Peter's sleeping. Peter. Anyways,
Dude, excuse me. I'm a little sleep deprived lately.
that was me watching Prince of the City. I was so tired, but I thought it was a pretty good movie. And then I watched another movie called Sanctuary. You might. Be familiar with it.
I've heard of that.
The something the one we talked about, right? It's the hotel.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah, this movie. Yeah. Right.
Stop guessing. I know what it is. I'll tell you. It's Margaret Qualley and the guy.
The Dominatrix movie.
Sanctuary. The Dominatrix movie.
Christopher Abbott.
I see. It's such a regular name that I'm like, is that it? It is Christopher Abbott. He's in some cool movies. Go check him out. I don't know if he's Canadian or if he just keeps working on Canadian movies. But anyways, so I was quite high hoped on this movie. I was quite let down, just in that it is not what I expected it to be. Have you guys seen Shiva Baby yet?
No.
Okay, so there's this. I don't know if it's a trend, but this movie reminded me of Shiva Baby, and I'm wondering if this is like a genre. We'll call it indie character drama, or sorry, what am I saying?
Sure.
Chamber drama. That's the word.
Okay.
Indie chamber drama. So the genre that I'm referring to is movie where we are limited to one space, and it's very obvious we are limited to one space, and limited to 2 characters who have conflicting goals and are just in like one conflict throughout the whole movie and can't resolve it until the very end. And not like a huge fan of that. I think Shiva Baby does it extremely well. This movie, I did feel like I was stuck on a set. Like I'm pretty sure this was like a constructed hotel room.
Sure.
So I was quite aware that we were on a set and quite cognizant of like, this is just one conflict like that we're dragging on, and some of the character decisions I felt didn't always make sense. I'm like, Margaret Qualley is quite fun in this. She's clearly having a lot of fun. There's a scene where like out of the blue she just starts like dancing wildly, and I was like, she's having a blast. Doesn't make sense to me, but like why it's happening. And yeah, I just felt like the conflict just was not strong enough to like, and also just kind of like the ending kind of like does like a left turny thing, and there's a lot of like supposedly twist moments that I just, every single time there was like a twist, I was like, I don't buy it. And it just felt like the character was lying, and I thought that was the point. I thought it was like the character is supposed to be lying, but then it turned out every time the character seemingly was lying, it was actually the truth, and I was like, oh, she just tells the truth weirdly. So I didn't love it as much as I hoped I would, but it was fine. I don't know. So yeah, that's what I've seen and watched and stuff. So next week is a creator.
Very excited.
Very
excited about this one.
Creator. Peter had sent some good reviews from some dubious sources, but maybe it will be
okay.
Good.
Actually, I think that movie is like right up Aiden and my alleys, to be honest. Like,
yeah, I'm excited for
it's
the creator.
sci-fi, sort of high concept. It's sort of high concept, and then oh my god, it's so cool. And also the guy who did
shot on the Sony FX3, I believe, as well.
What is that?
Good to know.
That is a camera that is not that much like bigger, higher duty than the cameras that we use.
Yeah,
really? That's fun.
It's Sony, so like
yeah.
That was enough. I don't know that specific model, but just hearing Sony, I was like, well, it's not.
Well, it's not.
Like,
it's not like
the
a cinema
fancy
camera.
Brands. Yeah, it's not.
Well, also Sony makes cinema cameras too. but it's not like this wasn't shot on like a big. I think FX3 is a cinema camera, but it's not like a huge super fancy camera.
But yeah, so we'll see the creator. I'll say while you guys are super excited, I'm just like the whole AI thing, and like I've seen that play out like thematically, like I've seen this before, so I'm just like,
yeah, but you don't know you've seen it before until you see it. You know, you don't know how they're gonna do it.
There's that, and
how they'll do it,
also
if they'll do good.
I just hope they don't retread old grounds when it comes to
That's
like
what
the
I'm
whole. There's a kid, we gotta extract the kid. You know, like your mission becomes like. Like the thing that you're assigned to kill became your new mission to protect, you know, like the whole, you know, like Mandalorian, Last of Us type situation, you know. I hope, if anything, they found a unique spin on it, so.
Yeah, so that's kind of where my concerns lie, is like, it's a lot of stuff I've seen before, so we'll see. But visually it looks quite good.
The trailer's
every movie is stuff you've seen before.
I mean, that is true.
That's what I'll say.
That's true. I've not seen Theater Camp before though, and I loved it. If you like,
you haven't seen a movie about a camp that was going to be shut down.
No, of course I've seen.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're right. If you like us, check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Predator v Movies. If you like my thoughts on movies, check me out on Letterboxd at _AlexGordon_. I leave reviews sometimes.
You can also look at me on Letterboxd. I'm 810Sunny. That's 810SONNY. My name is Wombo. I also leave reviews sometimes, though they are few and far between, and often just little jokes when I do leave them.
Very nice. Peter, do you have a Letterboxd that you sometimes leave reviews on that you'd like to plug?
No.
Oh.
No, I mean, my reviews are not as elaborate as Alex and not as funny as Aiden. So we'll leave it for the immediate friend group.
So would you say you have nothing to plug?
Yes.
Well then,
you know what that means. That means that you are contractually
obligated to
give us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Apple Music. I was gonna say. Okay, I didn't know there was a different app.
Apple Podcasts.
YouTube. Other ones.
SoundCloud. Okay. Anyway.
SoundCloud.
Leave a star rating. Venmo us.
Venmo is a couple bucks, except you can't because we're in Canada.
Leave a comment.
Buy the merch, Just
e-transfer will work.
Yeah.
But yeah, show us your love. Tell us who you think would win in the comments. Predator versus these children.
Whoa, wait, that's actually really bad. Don't say that.
Why? So they can tell us.
I'm kidding.
Who will win in the singing competition? Obviously.
Yeah.
Anyways, until next week, I'm Alex.
I'm Peter.
I'm Aiden.
And this was Predator versus Movies. We will see you next week. Pew, pew, pew.